The Age of Discovery, when the world was first mapped for deep sleep. Chapter 1, The Dawn of Curiosity. Before the seas were charted, before kingdoms reached across oceans, the world was mostly a mystery. Mountains rose like silent guardians, rivers wound through lands no human had named, and deserts stretched beyond imagination. For centuries, humans walked the edges of the known, wondering what lay beyond the horizon. Trade brought hints of other lands. Stories traveled along the Silk Road, whispering of riches and strange creatures. But myths were unreliable. Mariners needed more than tales, they needed science. The compass, a small needle floating on water, pointed north. It was simple, yet revolutionary. It allowed humans to imagine direction without seeing the land. The astrolabe measured the stars, helping sailors find latitude. Suddenly, the heavens themselves became a guide for exploration. Curiosity was not idle. Monarchs wanted power, merchants wanted wealth, and scholars wanted knowledge. In Europe, the desire for spices, gold, and silk pushed the boundaries of imagination. Maps existed, but they were sketches, filled with sea monsters and blank spaces. Each blank space was an invitation, someone must go there and learn. Beyond Europe, civilizations were already mapping their worlds. Chinese sailors charted coastlines, Arab traders recorded wind patterns, and Polynesians crossed the Pacific using only the stars. Yet Europe's curiosity was hungry, restless, and growing. It was more than survival, it was ambition. Humanity was learning to question the edge of the known world. It was learning to measure, to navigate, to map. Every ship leaving the harbor carried hope, fear, and the promise of discovery. In this age, the unknown was not just empty, it was alive. Mountains, rivers, and oceans waited for humans to measure, name, and understand them. And as the compass spun and the stars guided the way, the first chapter of global exploration began. The world, once infinite and unknowable, slowly became knowable. Borders, coastlines, and islands emerged from legend into reality. Humanity learned that curiosity was a map, and courage was the vessel that would carry it across oceans. And so, long before Magellan, long before Columbus, the world was ready to be discovered. And humanity was ready to remember that the earth was larger, stranger, and more beautiful than anyone had imagined. Chapter 2, Portugal, Masters of the Sea. On the southwestern edge of Europe, a small kingdom looked to the horizon. Portugal, surrounded by the Atlantic, dreamed not of land, but of oceans. Prince Henry, later called the Navigator, imagined a world beyond the known seas. He built schools for sailors, charted coasts, and encouraged curiosity that others feared. The Portuguese did not sail blindly. They studied the stars, measured tides, and observed the winds. Caravels, sleek ships with triangular sails, could tack against the wind, carrying explorers farther than ever before. Maps were drawn and redrawn. Each voyage added new knowledge to what was once just imagination. West Africa became their classroom. They mapped rivers, traded for gold, and learned from the kingdoms of Mali, Congo, and Benin. The lessons were practical, currents could carry ships faster, storms could destroy them. Science was survival. Knowledge was power. In these journeys, Portugal discovered more than land, they discovered routes. The Cape of Good Hope, once feared as the edge of the world, became a gateway to India and the East. Spices, silks, and stories flowed along these new highways, and Europe's hunger for wealth grew unstoppable. Explorers like Bartolomé Dias and Vasco da Gama risked storms, disease, and unknown waters. Yet they sailed with courage, leaving behind a trail of maps, journals, and new possibilities. The world was slowly being measured in degrees, minutes, and compass points. Every island charted, every coast drawn, brought humans closer to understanding the earth. But ambition had consequences. Trading posts became colonies. Encounters with local kingdoms were often violent. Yet even in conflict, knowledge spread, navigation techniques, astronomy, and new species traveled between continents. By the end of the 15th century, Portugal had mastered the art of exploration. They proved that small nations could reach far beyond their borders. Science and curiosity had triumphed over fear and ignorance. The Atlantic was no longer a limit, it was a bridge. Portugal's legacy would influence every explorer who followed. Their maps guided Spain, England, and the Netherlands. Their discoveries proved one undeniable truth: The world was vast, but humans were more determined than its oceans. And so, from the rocky cliffs of Lisbon to the golden shores of India, Portugal showed that mastery of the sea was mastery of the imagination itself. The age of discovery was just beginning, and the horizon would never be the same again. Chapter 3, Spain, Across the Atlantic. On the Iberian Peninsula, Spain looked west instead of south. The Atlantic Ocean stretched like a challenge, vast and unknown. Christopher Columbus believed there was land beyond the horizon, though many called him foolish. Spain, eager for wealth and empire, financed his daring journey in 1492. Columbus sailed with 3 ships, tiny against the Atlantic's might. For weeks, men grew restless, fearful of endless ocean. But the stars guided them, and the compass pointed north. Navigation was no longer guessing, it was a science slowly mastering uncertainty. When land finally appeared, it was not India, as Columbus had hoped, but islands unknown to Europeans. The New World revealed civilizations with astonishing complexity. The Taino, for example, had villages, agriculture, and rich culture. Soon, Spain encountered the Aztec and Maya civilizations, cities, temples, and knowledge far beyond European imagination. Maps began to change. Blank spaces were replaced with coastlines, rivers, and mountains. The Treaty of Tordesillas divided the globe between Spain and Portugal, drawing invisible lines of empire. The world became a chessboard of exploration, trade, and conquest. Spanish explorers did not only sail, they documented. Naturalists, cartographers, and chroniclers recorded plants, animals, and geography. The New World taught Europe about new crops, animals, and even celestial observations. Science and empire grew hand in hand, though sometimes violently. Gold, silver, and spices fueled Spain's rise. But conquest came with cost. Entire civilizations were devastated by disease and war. Yet the knowledge survived, maps, stories, and the understanding that the earth was larger and more complex than anyone had imagined. Spain had crossed the Atlantic, not just to claim land, but to rewrite the map of the world. The age of discovery was no longer about curiosity alone, it was about power, knowledge, and ambition. And from Europe to the Americas, the planet was being mapped for the first time, piece by piece. Every voyage carried not only men, but ideas. The unknown was slowly becoming known. The horizon was no longer the limit, it was an invitation. Spain had sailed west, and the world had never been the same again. Chapter 4, The Age of Cartography. As explorers returned from distant lands, the world itself began to take shape. Blank spaces on maps shrank. Oceans that once seemed endless were measured, islands numbered, rivers traced. Cartography, the art and science of mapmaking, was no longer imagination. It became the key to power, trade, and understanding. Claudius Ptolemy, centuries before, had imagined a world on grids of longitude and latitude. His ideas lay dormant until Renaissance scholars rediscovered them. Suddenly, maps were not just pictures, they were tools, precise instruments to navigate the globe. Merchants, sailors, and kings all relied on these charts to expand their influence. Gerardus Mercator changed everything. He stretched the globe onto a flat map, preserving angles and directions. Sailors could now plot a straight course across curved oceans. Science and art merged, the earth became something measurable, predictable, and conquerable. The printing press amplified this revolution. Maps could be copied, shared, and improved upon. Knowledge that once belonged to a few explorers became a network, spreading across Europe. Each voyage corrected errors, added new coasts, and redrew continents. Yet cartography was more than lines and symbols. It captured human ambition. Every river named, every mountain drawn, was proof that humans had been there, that they had dared. Maps blended myth and reality, sea monsters lingered in unknown waters, reminding sailors of the ocean's dangers. But slowly, science replaced superstition. Stars guided navigation, compasses gave certainty, and measured observations turned myth into knowledge. In this age, maps were the language of the world. They recorded trade routes, political boundaries, and cultural encounters. Explorers like Columbus, Magellan, and Vasco da Gama depended on these charts. Without them, empires could not expand, and the age of discovery would have remained dreams on the horizon. Cartography was more than a science, it was storytelling. It told of human courage, curiosity, and the relentless desire to know what lies beyond the visible. Through maps, the globe shrank, borders emerged, and the Earth began to be understood as a single, connected place. By the end of this age, the world was no longer a mystery. It was a puzzle, a canvas, and a challenge waiting to be explored. And with every map drawn, humanity realized that knowledge itself was the greatest discovery of all. Chapter 5, Magellan and the First Circumnavigation. The Atlantic was no longer a limit. But the Pacific Ocean remained a vast, uncharted expanse, stretching beyond imagination. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese navigator sailing for Spain, dared to cross it. He dreamed of reaching the Spice Islands by a western route, an idea that many called madness. In 1519, 5 ships set sail from Seville. The journey was perilous. Storms battered the vessels. Supplies dwindled. Sailors fell sick from scurvy. The ocean seemed endless, its silence intimidating. Yet Magellan pressed on, guided by the stars and the compass. Weeks turned into months. The Pacific tested every skill of navigation. Currents, winds, and uncharted islands were as dangerous as storms. The science of sailing was more than mathematics, it was survival. Every observation of the sun, every measurement of latitude, became a lifeline. In the Philippines, Magellan encountered cultures unknown to Europeans. They traded, negotiated, and sometimes fought. But the journey was not just about conquest, it was about knowledge. For the first time, Europeans began to understand the vast scale of the Earth, the true size of oceans, and the interconnectedness of continents. Magellan did not live to complete the voyage. He fell in a local skirmish, far from home, far from Europe. Yet his expedition continued under the command of Juan Sebastián Elcano. 3 years after departure, the Victoria returned to Spain, completing the first circumnavigation of the globe. The world had been measured in a new way. No longer a flat or limited surface, Earth was a sphere, navigable, interconnected, and immense. Maps were corrected, seas named, and global trade routes established. The age of discovery had reached a monumental milestone. Magellan's journey proved that courage and knowledge could overcome fear and uncertainty. It was not just a voyage, it was a declaration: the world was open to those who dared to explore. Science, navigation, and human ambition had together redrawn the boundaries of the Earth. And from that moment, the horizon was no longer an ending, it was an invitation to continue. Chapter 6, The Dutch and English on the Seas. As Spain and Portugal claimed oceans, new powers emerged from the north. The Netherlands and England, small kingdoms by land, became giants at sea. Their weapon was trade, their tool was navigation, and their ambition was empire. The Dutch East India Company sailed farther and faster than anyone before. They built ports, mapped islands, and controlled spice trade routes from Asia to Europe. Merchants became explorers, merchants became rulers. Every voyage brought wealth, but also knowledge. Cartographers documented coastlines, astronomers guided ships, and naturalists recorded plants, animals, and cultures unknown in Europe. England followed, determined not to be left behind. The English East India Company challenged Portuguese and Spanish dominance. They learned from every map, every logbook, every sailor's tale. Ships became laboratories, oceans became classrooms, and trade became science. In Asia, they encountered powerful kingdoms. The Mughal Empire, rich in spices and silk. Java and the Moluccas, islands of cinnamon and cloves. They studied tides, winds, and currents to navigate these complex waters. Navigation was not chance, it was calculated, precise, and increasingly scientific. Yet empire came with conflict. Battles at sea, piracy, and negotiations with local rulers shaped the map as much as trade. But even in competition, knowledge advanced. Botanical gardens, astronomical observations, and detailed maps of archipelagos spread across Europe. The Dutch and English proved that mastery of the seas depended on more than ships. It required strategy, observation, and relentless curiosity. Oceans that once seemed impossible were now highways of commerce and discovery. Science and ambition sailed together, redrawing the boundaries of what was known. By the late 17th century, the world was a network. Trade routes connected continents, cultures exchanged knowledge, and every harbor became a link in the global chain. The age of discovery was no longer about individual heroes. It was about nations, corporations, and the relentless human drive to map, measure, and master the unknown. And so, the Dutch and English left a legacy not just of wealth, but of knowledge. They showed that exploration could be organized, systematic, and enduring. The oceans had been tamed, not by conquest alone, but by science, observation, and the courage to sail beyond the horizon. Chapter 7: The Silk Road Meets the Sea. For centuries, the Silk Road had carried silk, spices, and ideas across deserts and mountains. Caravans traveled slowly, guided by stars and oases, connecting empires from China to Europe. But the seas offered a new path, faster, wider, and more dangerous. As European explorers charted oceans, they did not leave the Silk Road behind. Instead, maritime routes extended it, linking land and sea into a global network. Galleons crossed the Atlantic while dhows sailed the Indian Ocean. Knowledge flowed alongside goods, astronomy, mathematics, geography, and even medicine. In ports from Venice to Malacca, cultures collided and blended. Merchants from Europe, Arabia, India, and China exchanged not just spices, but stories, inventions, and scientific observations. Navigation improved rapidly. Sailors measured latitude by the sun, predicted tides, and studied currents. Every voyage refined maps, and every map made further journeys safer. The age of discovery was more than adventure, it was a network of information. The Earth was being measured in degrees, charted in symbols, and connected in ways no one had imagined. Global trade required precision, and precision required science. Ships became moving laboratories, oceans became data sources, and traders became early scientists. Yet the Silk Road also reminded explorers of limits. Deserts, mountains, and monsoons could halt the fastest ships. Empires learned that knowledge and courage were necessary, but not sufficient. Observation, adaptation, and respect for nature were the true keys to survival. By blending land and sea, the world became smaller and more accessible. Ideas traveled faster than armies. Maps were updated in real time, ports became centers of learning, and knowledge became a currency as valuable as gold. The Silk Road had not ended, it had transformed. Land and sea merged into a single network of discovery, trade, and science. The world, once scattered and unknowable, was now mapped, measured, and connected. And humanity began to understand that curiosity, commerce, and courage together could shape the globe. Chapter 8: Africa and the Spice Islands. Africa had long been a land of mystery to European eyes. Its deserts, rivers, and coasts were both feared and coveted. Portuguese explorers sailed around the Cape of Good Hope, seeking gold, ivory, and a passage to the east. Every voyage brought knowledge of currents, winds, and coastlines previously unknown. Along the African coast, powerful kingdoms thrived: Mali, Congo, and Great Zimbabwe. They were wealthy, sophisticated, and connected to trade networks stretching across the continent. Europeans learned from them, not always respectfully, but knowledge of local geography, winds, and ports became invaluable. Far to the east, the Spice Islands, Maluku, beckoned with cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon. These islands were more than treasure, they were laboratories of navigation and commerce. Sailors mapped currents, studied seasonal winds, and recorded new plants and animals. Trade Every reef became a point on a map, a guide for the next expedition. Knowledge was cumulative. Today's observations informed tomorrow's voyages. Others resisted intrusion. The Spice Islands became a center of cultural exchange, blending European, Asian, and indigenous knowledge. Ships carried not